The following is a class on the Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 5, Text 27 through 28, given by Hridayananda Das Goswami on November 8, 1987, in New York.
Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated in the two, sending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence. The transcendentalist, aiming at liberation, becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated. Tasya jnanam janashalakaya chakshurun militam jena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sparshan krutva vihimaya chakshur chaivantare bhuvo pranapano sumo krutva nasabhyantara charino jitendriyano jir Mumimokshaparaya Vigaticha Vayaprodhu Daksada Muktariva. So, as Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport here, in these two verses, which are verses 27 and 28, in the 5th chapter, Lord Krishna begins to explain some of the technicalities of yoga, the yoga system. Now, the first point here is that outside things should be kept outside. Just like, for example, let's say if your mother has a clean house, some things are dirty, so they're outside things. So you keep the outside things outside, you don't bring them inside. It's a simple point. Similarly, Lord Krishna here says, you have to keep the outside things outside. Now what does he mean? What does that have to do with yoga? What are the outside things? The outside things are contact, connection between our senses and the sense objects, contact wherein the purpose is selfish. The purpose is selfish. Simple point. For example, let's say you work with the post office, which is considered to be a benign occupation. Let us say you work with the post office, and they have a little post office golf cart that you drive around, delivering the mail. So, let's say you work for the post office, your contact with that little machine has to be in the service of the government. If you actually take one of the post office little cars, you throw your golf clubs in it, and drive off to play golf, that's not legal. You have to bring it back. The idea is that you work with the post, this analogy. And let us say you work with the post office, you have contact with that little machine, that car. But the contact has to always be in service of the post office. If you drive it off to play golf, that's illegal. The contact has to be in the service of the government. Similarly, everything belongs to God. Everything belongs to God. Now, we can even imagine his body as like a little vehicle, like a little golf cart. And we are inside this body. So the idea is, this body is given to us by God. It's not that the Nobel scientist manufactured the body. It's not that the scientist who studied the brain made the brain. Sometimes you think they did, the way things are presented in books, you think they made it, but actually they didn't. They don't hesitate to put their names on different theories and laws. They discover some natural function that's going on, and it's called McGillicuddy's law of such and such, or Abercrombie's law of such and such, as if they had made it. But of course, we know they haven't. The brain is actually made by God. They're merely discovering what someone else has done. So, the body is given to us by God. We don't make it. It's given to us. And it should only be used to serve God. That's it. We have an eternal relationship with God, Krishna. And the relationship is compared to the root of a tree and the different branches of the tree. God of Krishna, Krishna is the root of all that exists. And we are like little twigs and branches. And that's explained in the Bhagavad. So just as we water the root of the tree, and the whole tree is satisfied. So we are meant to give service. We are meant to serve the Supreme Personality, God, the Absolute Truth, and automatically we will be satisfied. So this body is a vehicle by which we, the tiny little soul, can serve the Supreme Infinite Soul and become satisfied. Now, if we are not serving the Supreme Soul, then we should just stop whatever we're doing and shift gears and go back and serve the Supreme Soul. You see, otherwise it's like taking your U.S. Post Office vehicle and putting your golf clubs in it and going out to play golf. It's illegal. Similar thing. So here, Krishna says, he uses the term Sparashan Bhayam. That's an interesting term. Sparasha in Sanskrit literally means touch. Literally, in fact, this word is used sometimes. It means a sense of touch. So, it refers to experiences wherein our senses are touching material things. Just like we look at something, we hear something, we touch something, we smell something, we taste something. These are all sparsha. These are all contacts between the senses and the objects. Now, the word bahya, which in Sanskrit means external. Bahya comes from the word bahir. What does it mean? The literal term used here is external touches or external contacts. To understand this term, we can go to a very famous verse in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna says that earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego are my separated energies. These are the separated energies. In other words, they are kept outside. I'll explain something about this. There is a spiritual world. There is a kingdom of God. And God lives there. It's not that God's greatest ambition is to get a condominium on Park Avenue, or God finally made it to Manhattan. We should understand that although we, in our triviality and in our foolishness, think it's desirable to live in Manhattan or Georgetown or Paris or Timbuktu or wherever we think it's prestigious to live, that by our standards, just like if I can give a somewhat gross analogy, a little gross, but it's a bona fide analogy, and it'll convey the point. Imagine a pigsty. Imagine a pigsty, and let's say in that pigsty there are many big, hefty pigs, and let's say a very delectable heap of slop was just been thrown into the pigsty. So the pigs are going for it. And after the big pigs I guess they sort of shoulder their way forward, pushing aside the smaller pigs, and they get first dibs, or they get first chance. They get to take the slop first. So if you look at the pigsty, you'll see this commotion going on. There's commotion among the pigs, the big pigs pushing that little pig and getting first of that slop. Now, If you were offered a chance of saying, do you want the slop? Or would you like to go in the pigsty? Would you like to be in this section of the pigsty or that section? Where would you like to be in the pigsty? We would probably decline and say, no thank you, I'm not interested in any place in that pigsty. I consider the whole situation to be obnoxious. So similarly, although we, or the conditioned souls, blinded by our material desires, actually think that there are nice places within this world, from God's point of view, the whole situation down here is sort of a stinking mess. See, there's nothing really very attractive down here from God's point of view. Everything here is temporary, it's contaminated in so many ways, by lust, by greed, by ignorance. This is not an attractive place, although in our blindness we think it's attractive. So God has His own abode, and in fact, we are meant to live there. So, one might ask, well then, why did God bother to create this world? Why was this world created? It was created because some of the souls, like ourselves, instead of being satisfied to live in that superior realm, we want to imitate God. Although God is the most intelligent, we want to come down here and pretend we're intellectuals and we're the most intelligent. Or, although God is the most beautiful, we want to come down here and smear different types of cosmetics on ourselves and pretend that we're the most beautiful. Or, although God is the strongest, we want to pretend that we're the strongest. Everyone, virtually everyone in this world is pretending something. Everyone has some pride in something based on this body. So, because at the present time, instead of serving God, we want to, in some way or other, somehow or other, more or less, we want to imitate God. Therefore, He has given us this little playpen, or this playground, and we are down here pretending that we're doing many things. Now, therefore, because this material world, which is rife with lust and greed and ignorance and death and all these things, because this is a very inferior world, which is, so to speak, set aside for the conditioned souls, it's called the external world. It is outside the mainstream. There is nothing in this universe which is truly mainstream. This is a very remote and silly place outside the mainstream for fallen souls who want to imitate God. So although one may think, I finally made it, I'm in Manhattan, or I'm in Washington, I'm here, there actually no one has made it on the material platform. Everyone is completely out in the peanut gallery, so to speak. Everyone is far, far away from the real point. So therefore, this world is called the external world. It is the external energy of God. Now, although we've painted a somewhat dismal, although realistic picture of this world, there is some consolation, there is some hope here. It's not a completely hopeless situation. Because this world is, after all, created by God, and He's so kind, He agrees to pervade this world. God is all-pervading. And therefore, there is the possibility, or the facility, even within this world, to spiritualize our existence again, to again revive our consciousness of Krishna or God, and to spiritualize our whole life and spiritualize our environment, in fact. How do we do that? It's very simple. Although this world is the world in which people imitate God and in fact shamelessly try to exploit His creation, if, even down here, we begin to act as they do up there, if we begin to act spiritually, then because this is God's world after all, it will start to become a spiritual world for us, at least. Just like New York is many things for many people. For some people, it's the end of the road where they get the final smash and kill themselves. For some people, it's where they make it big. It's go in the same street. It's different things for different people. So similarly, this world can be the place where we go plunge deeper and deeper into ignorance, or it can be a place of enlightenment for us. As they say, as above, so below. So if we begin to act here below as people act above, then this will also become a spiritual place. So that's the opportunity. Therefore, Krishna says here in the first line, Sparshan kritva bahirbhayam. All these external contacts, by external contacts, it means contacts which have no good purpose. It's not to serve God. It's not based on knowledge of the absolute truth. It's just a selfish attempt to exploit God's creation. Those are bahya sparsha. Those are external contacts. All those external contacts should be kept outside. We should just give those up. That's what Krishna is actually saying here. Sparshan kritva bahirbhayam chakshu saivantare dhruvo. Then he goes on to explain something, this yoga system, which incidentally is not recommended for this age. It's a bona fide system, otherwise it wouldn't be here. But it was recommended for a previous age. Krishna spoke this in a previous age. And all of the scriptures given to us by Krishna explain that in this age, these things are a little too high-tech for us. Yoga, things are extremely technical and difficult for us. But the eyes are focused between the eyebrows, prana, pano, samo kritva. There are very complicated breathing exercises, nasa bhyantara charino. But the real essence here is explained, jitendriya manobudhir. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence must be controlled. This is a simple point. Imagine if you're trying to get from Brooklyn, let's say, to Connecticut. Let's say you're going from Brooklyn to Connecticut, and you have a car. And let's say you lose control of your car. Let's say the wheels start falling off, or the motor blows up, or something happens. Obviously, your trip is finished. That's the end of your trip out to Connecticut. Because you've lost control of the car. You may just go over the side of the bridge. Similarly, as we've explained, this body, we are not this body, we are the souls inside this body. So, this body is just a vehicle meant for taking us back to our original home, kingdom of God. Now, if we lose control of the body, if it just goes out of control, that's the end of our trip. It's a very simple point. So, our senses, our mind, our intelligence, our rational analytic facility, they tend to go crazy. And suddenly we lust after something. We lust after something. When I was younger, I once saw a film which was a little instructive. It was science fiction. And in this film, there was a beautiful, some type of cosmic princess or something. And she was in the process of seducing our hero, some man. But suddenly he discovered that it was all a big trick, and actually this lady was just a robot. Something happened, something came off, and he saw, whoops, just a bunch of computers and wheels. So he realized this relationship is not really desirable. So that was it. They broke up. Because she broke up, and he saw that it was just a machine. And it was all a trick to capture him and so on. So, the material world is a little bit like that. Look what happens. We're all born, we get different kinds of bodies, and we attract each other or repulse each other according to our bodies. But actually, if you look inside, it's just a big computer. I mean, surely all of us know something about physiology. Everyone must know a little bit about physiology, that there's a brain in there, there's a bunch of wires and neuron, whatever they are. There are all kinds of electrical impulses shooting this way and that way, and there's actually a bunch of wires and cords, which we call the nervous system. And there's just different muscles, it's like elastic. They expand and contract. There's bones, which is just like the structure, then bones. And then, in other words, it's a very mechanical, it's very sophisticated, but it's also very mechanical. So there's something very bizarre going on here. Our senses are becoming attracted. I want this, I want that. I love you. No, I don't love you anymore. And this is all going on, but that which we're becoming attracted to is just what is it? Just a bunch of, there are souls in there. The bodies are living, but only because there's a soul inside, but the body itself is just a machine. So you have one machine embracing another machine, and we think, this is what life's all about. Forgetting the soul inside these machines. So this is a big mistake. So a yogi, one who's trying to make spiritual advancement, he has to remember, my goal is to get out of this illusion, to go back to my eternal position, so I can't allow my senses and my mind to go crazy and to become distracted by the glittering things of this world, which after all are not gold. The things of this world are glittering, but they are certainly not gold. It's fool's gold. It's like, you're walking down Fifth Avenue and someone comes up and offers you a Rolex watch for $11. It's a gold Rolex watch, and it's only $11 because some people think, wow, this is amazing. A gold Rolex watch for $11. So the material world is something like that. Maya is offering you all kinds of trinkets. They say the Indians sold Manhattan. Well, it used to be $24 worth of trinkets. With inflation, maybe it's now $59 or something. But it's something like that. We are giving up our spiritual life, giving up everything which is actually valuable, and what are we getting? A few trinkets which then disappear anyway, or we disappear. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, this world is a weird abode. Either we disappear or the things we possess disappear. Ultimately, everything disappears. As they say in Spanish, borrón cuenta nueva. So, it's a very weird abode. It's not our real home. Therefore, so that we don't get distracted, we don't get misled, we have to control our senses, mind, and intelligence. Munir, we should be thoughtful. Moksha parayana, we should be determined and dedicated to liberation. Vigate cha bhaya krodho. We have to become free from material desires, fear, and anger. Now, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that some things are actually to be feared. When it says here, become free from fear, it means don't fear something which is good for you. For example, don't be afraid to surrender to Krishna. Some people are afraid of taking up spiritual life, but they are not afraid of engaging in material life. So something which is actually ruining them, they're not afraid of, and something which will actually save them, they're afraid of. So this is muddled thinking. So we should become free of illusory fear. Icha bhaya, krodha, and material anger, jaksharamuktaivasa. So a person who takes seriously all these instructions here of Krishna, he becomes a liberated soul. He or she becomes a liberated soul. So, these are some of the points of this Bhagavad Gita. It's such a great work. Srila Prabhupada has so nicely explained it. We encourage everyone to seriously study this Bhagavad Gita as it is and take advantage of this Krishna consciousness movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we thank you for your attention. Now, are there any questions on these points? So there's no questions, we'll stop here. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.
The following is a class on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 3, Text 20, given by Hridayananda Das Goswami, on November 25th, 1987, in Orlando, Florida.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vile Bhakta Gurukrama Vikrama Ye Na Sinvata Karna Pute Rasya Jiva Asati Dardurika Iva Sutam Na Cha Upagayati Urugaya Radha Dile Bhaturu Krama Vikramanje Dile Bhaturu Krama Vikramanje Nasinvata Karna Pute Narasya Nasinvata Karna Pute Narasya Jivasati Dardurikeva Sutta Achopagaya Tirugaya Gatha Dile Bhaturu Krama Vikramanje Nasinvata Karna Pute Narasya Nasinvata Karna Pute Narasya Jivasati Dardurikeva Sutta Achopagaya Tirugaya Gatha. Translation and purport. A very nice verse. By Srila Prabhupada. One who has not listened to the messages about the prowess and marvelous acts of the personality of Godhead, who has not sung or chanted loudly the worthy songs about the Lord, is to be considered to possess ear holes like the holes of snakes, and a tongue like the tongue of a frog. This is 2nd Canto, Chapter 3, Text 20, translation and purport by His Divine Grace to the Pope. Devotional service of the Lord, purport, is rendered by all limbs or parts of the body. It is a transcendental dynamic force of the spirit soul. Therefore, devotees engage 100% in the service of the Lord. One can engage in devotional service when the senses of the body are purified in relation with the Lord, and one can render service to the Lord with the help of all the senses. As such, the senses and the action of the senses are to be considered impure or materialistic as long as they are employed only in sense gratification. The purified senses are engaged not in sense gratification but in the service of the Lord in toto. The Lord is the supreme with all senses, and the servitor, who is part and parcel of the Lord, also has the same senses. Service to the Lord is a completely purified use of the senses as described in the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord imparted instructions with full senses, and Arjuna received them with full senses, and thus there was a perfect exchange of sensible and logical understanding between the master and the disciple. Spiritual understanding is nothing like an electrical charge from the master to the disciple, as foolishly claimed by some propaganda mongers. Everything is full of sense and logic, and the exchange of views between the master and disciple is possible only when the reception is submissive and real. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said that one should receive the teaching of Lord Chaitanya with intellect and full senses, so that one can logically understand the great mission. In the impure state of a living being, the various senses are fully engaged in mundane affairs. If the ear is not engaged in the service of the Lord by hearing about Him from Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, certainly the holes of the ear will be filled with some rubbish. Therefore, the messages of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam should be preached all over the world very loudly. This is the duty of a pure devotee who has actually heard about them from the perfect sources. Many want to speak something to others, but because they are not trained to speak on the subject matter of Vedic wisdom, they are all speaking nonsense, and people are receiving them with no sense. Therefore, there are hundreds and thousands of sources for distributing mundane news of the world, and people of the world are also receiving it. Similarly, the people of the world should be taught to hear the transcendental topics of the Lord, and the devotee of the Lord must speak loudly so that they can hear. The frogs loudly croak, with the result that they invite the snakes to eat them. The human tongue is especially given for chanting the Vedic hymns and not for croaking like frogs. The word asati used in this verse is also significant. Asati means a woman who has become a prostitute. A prostitute has no reputation for good womanly qualities. Similarly, the tongue which is given to the human being for chanting the Vedic hymns will be considered a prostitute when engaged in chanting some mundane nonsense. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjala Salakaya Chakshuru Militam Jeno Tasmai Sri Gurave. So the snakes entered the holes in the ground. It's described by Prabhupada that snakes don't build their own hole. They go into some other hole, like a mouse's hole, or a gopher hole, and they consume the local resident. And they take over the hole. So, one whose ears are not hearing about Krishna, but hearing about mundane things, it's described that his ear holes are like those holes because just snakes are coming in and out. Nonsense is coming in and out. That's the idea here. Delay. Similarly, therefore, there are hundreds and thousands of sources for distributing mundane news of the world, and people of the world are also receiving it. Similarly, the people of the world should be taught to hear the transcendental topics of the Lord, and the devotee of the Lord must speak loudly so that they can hear. The frogs loudly croak, with the result that they invite the snakes to eat them. The human tongue is especially given for chanting the Vedic hymns and not for croaking like frogs. The word asati used in this verse is also significant. A sati means a woman who has become a prostitute. A prostitute has no reputation for good womanly qualities. Similarly, the tongue which is given to the human being for chanting the Vedic hymns will be considered a prostitute when engaged in chanting some mundane nonsense. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjala Salakaya Chakshuru Militam Jeno Tasmai Sri Gurave. So the snakes entered the holes in the ground. It's described by Prabhupada that snakes don't build their own hole. They go into some other hole, like a mouse's hole, or a gopher hole, and they consume the local resident. And they take over the hole. So, one whose ears are not hearing about Krishna, but hearing about mundane things, it's described that his ear holes are like those holes because just snakes are coming in and out. Nonsense is coming in and out. That's the idea here. Delay. Batauru kramavikramanyena sinvata karna putena rasya. Jihva sati darduri keva sutta. And the tongue, jihva, is asati. Prabhupada translates useless, unchaste. Jihva asati dardurika. Dardurika means froggish. Jihva sati dardurika eva sutta. Nacha upagayati urugaya gatha. Which is never chanted, but sung the songs of the Supreme Lord. Jihva, tarmadhe jihva ati lobhamoya sudurmati. Of all the senses, the tongue is the most voracious and uncontrollable. Tarmadhe jihva. Asati, same thing. Tarmadhe jihva, no. Tarmadhe jihva ati lobhamoya. Ati means too much. Lobhamoya, greedy, full of greed. It's too much full of greed. The tongue is too greedy to talk nonsense and eat nonsense. Ati lobhamoya, sudurmati, and very stupid. Yes. Mati means consciousness, and durmati means bad consciousness, stupidity, foolishness. And su means very, very foolish. Sudurmati means very foolish. Ati lobhamoya, sudurmati. Tarmadhye, that means among all the senses. Tarmadhye jihva, ati lobhamoya, sudurmati. Taki jita, katina samsare. Therefore, in this nasty material world, katina samsare, Lord Krishna has given us jeta, the means to conquer the tongue. Tarmadye jivhati lobhamoy sudurmati takhe jeta kathina samsare. Krishna vara doyamoy. Krishna is very merciful. Vara, very. Doyamoy, merciful. Krishna vara doyamoy kari vara jiva joy. He's given us the jiva joy. It means to conquer the tongue. Saprasadana dilo vai. So, taking prasadam, Krishna prasadam, and speaking about Krishna. This is the way to conquer. This is the way to conquer this nasty consciousness, where we want to exploit this world instead of serving the actual proprietor of this world. And Prabhupada has given us so much literature, so if we read this literature, we won't be attracted to all the nonsense literature which is being produced. What is that statement? Naramanti hangsa, najatra hangsa, najatra hangsa, ramanti usiksaya. Swan-like persons don't enjoy where the crows go. What is that verse? That it begins. Najatra najad bhachas chitra padam harer jaso jagat pavitram karichit. Anyway, that those words, the so-called literatures, even if they are chitra padam means elegant or eloquent, very eloquent, very beautiful writing. Najat bhachas chitra padam harer jaso jagat pavitram pragranita karichit. The devotees don't accept literatures, even if they're very nicely written, if they don't contain the glories of the Lord. Tadvaya samtirutam, because it's a pilgrimage place for crows. Although it is very attractive, that beautiful style is just to seduce one into unreality. The unreality is that God is not there. If God is not there, it's not reality, because reality means God. He's everywhere. So it is just to seduce us into something which is illusion, because there's no glorification of the Supreme Lord. So tadvaya samtirtam. It's a pilgrimage of crows. Tadvaya samtirtam pushanti manasa. The wise, thoughtful people consider that it's a pilgrimage of crows. Those who are actually thoughtful, those who think deeply, they see it that way. Najatra hangsa iramanti usiksaya. Because the hangsas, the swans, are usiksaya. They have their abode, or they have their residence in the spirit, on the spiritual platform. Usiksaya. Therefore, they don't enjoy where the crows eat garbage and pus and so many things. So, similarly here it said, Jivasati dharvi kiva sutta. If our tongue does not glorify God, it's like a frog's tongue, just croaking. One frog, from the point of view of one frog, another frog's croaking is very attractive. I'm sure they have their top 10 croakers, isn't it? They must have they sit there and listen. Frogs loved it. They sing in the shower, isn't it? When it starts to rain, they just start to croak, isn't it? When it starts to rain, the frog starts. They like to sing in the shower. And other frogs listen. So similarly, if there's no glorification of God, our so-called singing is like the croaking of a frog. So these are strong words, good, strong medicine to wake us up and show us the real truth. So any questions on these points? Bili baturu kamavikravanje nasinvata karna putena rasya jivasati dardari keva sutta nachopagaya tyudaya gata. So we'll stop here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Good.
The following is a class on Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila chapter 25, text 200 through 227, given by Hridayananda Das Goswami on November 24th, 1987, in Alachua, Florida.
Hare Krishna Nama Lohite Krishna Sthane Stiti Mahapatake Hoye Prayaschiti. When you are situated at the lotus feet of Krishna, no sinful reaction can touch you. This is the best solution to all sinful activity. Prayagyarai Vrindavane Re Chalila Prayaga Ayodhya Diya Naimisharanye Aira. Thus receiving the order from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to go to Vrindavan, Subudhi Roy left Varanasi and went through Prayag, Ayodhya and Naimisharanya toward Vrindavan. This is instructions being given to Subudhi Roy. Some Muslim water was sprinkled on him, so he consulted the Brahmins of Varanasi, asking him how his conversion to Mohammedanism could be counteracted, to advise him to drink hot ghee and give up his life. When he consulted others, Subudhi Roy consulted some other Brahmins, they told him he did not commit a grievous fault, and consequently should not drink hot ghee and give up his life. As a result, Subudhi Roy was doubtful about what to do. In a state of perplexity, Subudhi Roy met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the Lord was at Varanasi. Subudhi Roy explained his position and asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu what he should do. The Lord advised him, go to Vrindavan and chant the Hare Krishna mantra constantly. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further advised Subudhi Roy, begin chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. When your chanting is almost pure, all your sinful reactions will go away. After you chant perfectly, you will get shelter at the lotus feet of Krishna. When you are situated at the lotus feet of Krishna, no sinful reaction can touch you. This is the best solution to all sinful activity. Payagyarai Vrindavane Re Chalila Prayaga Yodhya Diya Naimisharanye Yoila. Thus receiving the order from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to go to Vrindavan, Subudhi Roy left Varanasi and went to Prayag, Ayodhya and Naimisharanya toward Vrindavan. Kartakti Vas Rai Naimisharanye Gavila Prabhu Vrindavana Huite Prayaga Jaila. Subudhi Roy stayed for some time at Naimisharanya. During that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Prayag after visiting Vrindavan. Mathura Siya Rai Prabhu Varta Pailo Prabhu Lagona Paya Mane Baraduka Paila. After reaching Mathura, Subudhi Roy received information of the Lord's itinerary. He became very unhappy because he was not able to contact the Lord. Shushka Kasta Adi Rai Veche Mathurate Pancha Chai Paisa Hoya Ek Ek Bhojate. Subudhi Roy would collect dry wood in the forest and take it to the city of Mathura to sell. For each load he would receive 5 or 6 paisa. Apne rahe ake paisa chana chavaiya ar paisa paniya stane rakhe na dhariya. Earning his livelihood by selling dry wood, Subudhi Roy would live on only 1 paisa's worth of dried chickpeas, and he would deposit whatever other paisas he had with some merchant. Purport: in those days there was no banking system like the one now found in Western countries. If one had excess money, he would deposit it with some merchant, usually a grocer. That was the banking system. Subudhi Roy would deposit his extra money with a mercantile man and spend it when necessary. When one is in the renounced order, saving money is not recommended. However, if one saves money for the service of the Lord or a Vaishnava, that is accepted. These are the dealings of Subudhi Roy, who was one of the confidential devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri H.D.Goswami also followed this principle by spending 50% of his money in order to serve Krishna through Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. He gave 25% of his money to relatives, and 25% he deposited in the custody of a merchant. These are the approved methods recommended in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Whether in renounced order or in the Grihastha order, The Vaishnavas should follow these principles set forth by the previous acharyas. Duki Vaishnava ki tare Korana Bhojan Gaudiya Ile Ladhi Bhata Toila Mardan. Sudhi Roy used to spend his savings to supply yogurt to Bengali Vaishnavas who came to Mathura. He also gave them cooked rice and oil massages. When he saw a poverty-stricken Vaishnava, he would use his money to feed him. Therefore, there's a special reference for the maintenance of Bengali Vaishnavas. A Gaudiya Vaishnava is a Bengali Vaishnava. Most of the devotees of Lord Chaitanya at that time were Gaudiya and Odiyas, inhabitants of Bengal and Odisha. There are still many hundreds and thousands of disciples in Bengal and Odisha. Bengalis are habituated to eating cooked rice as their staple food. When they went to Mathura in the north, they found that the people generally ate chapatis or roti made of wheat. The Bengalis could not digest this food because they were used to cooked rice. Therefore, as soon as Guru Roy saw a Bengali Vaishnava arriving in Mathura, he would try to supply him with cooked rice. Bengalis are also accustomed to taking a massage with mustard oil. In any case, Guru Roy wanted to serve the Vaishnavas according to their needs. Therefore, he would supply yogurt to ease the digestion of food eaten in Mathura, particularly the wheat-made chapatis and roti. Rupa Gosai aile tare bahu priti koila apan sange loya dada savana dekaila. When Rupa Goswami arrived in Mathura, Subhuti Roy, out of love and affection for him, wanted to serve him in so many ways. He personally took Rupa Goswami to see all the 12 forests of Vrindavan. Very point. Sri Rupa Goswami had been a minister in the government of Hussain Shah, and Subhuti Roy was also known to Hussain Shah, because as a boy he had been Subhuti Roy's servant. It appears that Subhuti Roy was elderly, yet while he was living in Mathura, he showed Rupa Goswami the 12 forests of Vrindavan. Masamata Rupa Gosai Rahila Vrindavane Shigra Chaviyayila Sanatananusandhane. Rupa Goswami remained in Mathura and Vrindavan for 1 month in the association of Subhuti Roy. After that, he left Vrindavan to search for his elder brother, Sanatana Goswami. Ganga Tirapade Prabhu Prayagere Aila Taha Sri Vidhai Se Pate Chalila. When Rupa Goswami heard that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had gone to Prayag, on the road along the banks of the Ganges, both Rupa and his brother Anupam went that way to meet the Lord. Etha Sanatana Gosai Prayage Avsiya Mathura Ila Saran Rajapada Bihar. After reaching Prayag, Sanatana Goswami, following the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, went to Vrindavan along the public road. Purport. This is especially significant because when Sanatana Goswami went from Bengal to Benares, due to the political situation, he did not go along the public road. After meeting Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Benares, however, he was ordered to proceed to Vrindavan along the public road leading to Mathura. In other words, he was advised not to fear for his political situation. Mathura te subudhirai tahare mirila rupanupam kada sakali konila. When Sanatana Goswami met Subhuti Roy at Mathura, Subhuti Roy explained everything about his younger brothers Rupa Goswami and Anupam. Gangapate Vibhai Rajapate Sanatan Adaiva Tahasanena Hoila Vidhan. Since Sanatana Goswami went along the public road to Vrindavan, and Rupa Goswami and Anupam went on the road along the Ganges banks, it was not possible for them to meet. Subhuti Roy Bahu Sneho Kori Sanatane Vyavahar Sneho Sanatanani Mame. Subhuti Roy and Sanatana Goswami knew one another before accepting the renounced order. Therefore, Subhuti Roy showed much affection to Sanatana Goswami, but Sanatana Goswami hesitated to accept his affections and sentiments. Mahavirakta Sanatana Brahmin Vane Vane Prativikhe Pratikunje Rahi Ratri Dine. Being very advanced in the renounced order, Sanatana Goswami used to wander from forest to forest, never taking shelter of any habitation built of stone. He used to live under trees or beneath bushes both day and night. Mathura Mahatmya Shastra Sangraha Kuriya Lupta Tirtha Prakata Koila Vanete Brahmiya. Srila Sanatana Goswami collected some books about archaeological excavations in Mathura, and wandering in the forest, he sought to renovate all those holy places. Emata Sanatana Vrindavanete Roila Rupa Gosai Vibhai Kasite Oila. Sanatana Goswami remained in Vrindavan, and Rupa Goswami and Nupam returned to Varanasi. Maharashtriya Dija Shekhar Misratapan Tinjan Saharupa Korila Milan. When Rupa Goswami arrived at Varanasi, he met the Maharashtrian Brahmana Chandrasekhar and also Tapanisa. Shekharer Gore Vasa Misa Gore Vika Misa Mukhe Sune Sanatane Prabhu Rasika. While Rupa Goswami stayed in Varanasi, he resided at the house of Chandrasekhar and took prasad at the house of Tapanisa. In this way, he heard of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions to Sanatana Goswami in Varanasi. Kasi te Prabhu Charitra Suniti Nirmukhe Sanyasi Re Kripa Suni Paila Varasuke. While staying at Varanasi, Rupa Goswami heard of all Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities. When he heard of his deliverance of the Mayavad sannyasis, he became very happy. Mahaprabhu Ruparloke Pranatira Kiya Sukhi Hoila Lokamukhe Kirtana Surya. When Rupa Goswami saw that all the people of Varanasi respected Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became very happy. He even heard stories from the general populace. Dina Dasha Rahi Rupa Gaudi Jatra Koila Sanatana Rupere Charitra Koila. After staying in Varanasi for about 10 days, Rupa Goswami returned to Bengal. In this way, I have described the activities of Rupa and Sanatana. Edha Mahaprabhu Jadi Niladri Chalila Nirjana Vanapate Jaite Mahasukha Koila. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned to Jagannath Puri, he passed through the solitary forest, and he took great pleasure in doing so. Sukhe chale aise Prabhu Balabhadra sange Purva Vadrigadi sange Koila Nana Sange. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu happily returned to Jagannath Puri in the company of his servant Balabhadra Bhattacharya. As previously, the Lord performed many pleasing pastimes with the forest animals. So we'll stop there. Any questions?
Why is it that even though Lord Chaitanya preached in Varanasi, it's such a
Varanasi.
It's such a haven for Mayavadis still.
There always was. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a little oasis that he made in time. Because he also left it for us to preach. While he was there, he converted all the people, but in time the natural and personal tendencies crept back in. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saved the whole world, but now, just like the sun is there, then the darkness comes again.
But is there some special attraction for Mayavadis there at that place?
Yes.
What is it?
It's just their place. So, no questions? We'll stop here for now.
The following is a class on Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, Chapter 7, Text 80 through 86, given by Hridayananda Das Goswami on November 25th, 1987, in Orlando, Florida.
Lord Chaitanya speaking. Dharya dharite nari hoilama ummata hasi kandi nachi gai jaiche madamata. While chanting the holy name of the Lord in pure ecstasy, I lose myself, and thus I laugh cry, dance, and sing just like a madman. Tobe dhairya dhuri mane Korilun bichar Krishna name jnana chanda huila amar. Collecting my patience, therefore, I began to consider that chanting the holy name of Krishna had covered all my spiritual knowledge. Purport: Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu hints in this verse that to chant the holy name of Krishna, one does not need to speculate on the philosophical aspects of the science of God, for one automatically becomes ecstatic and without consideration immediately chants, dances, laughs, cries, and sings just like a madman. Pagal hoilanami dharya nahi mane eta chintini vedilum gurur charane. I saw that I had become mad by chanting the holy name, and I immediately submitted this to the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Purport: Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as an ideal teacher, shows us how a disciple should deal with his spiritual master. Whenever there is doubt regarding any point, he should refer the matter to his spiritual master for clarification. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that while chanting and dancing, he had developed the kind of mad ecstasy that is possible only for a liberated soul. Yet even in his liberated position, he referred everything to his spiritual master whenever there were doubts. Thus, in any condition, even when liberated, we should never think ourselves independent of the spiritual master, but must refer to him as soon as there is some doubt regarding our progressive spiritual life. Kiva mantra dida gosai, kiva taragal, kiva japite mantra korila pagal. My dear Lord, what kind of mantra have you given me? I have become mad simply by chanting this Mahamantra. Purport: Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu praised in his Sikshastika, Yugaitam nimeshena chakshusha prabrashaitam sunyaitam jagat sarvam govinda virahena me. O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. It is the aspiration of a devotee that while he chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, his eyes will fill with tears, his voice falter, and his heart throb. These are good signs in chanting the holy name of the Lord. In ecstasy, one should feel the entire world to be vacant without the presence of Govinda. This is a sign of separation from Govinda. In material life, we are all separated from Govinda and are absorbed in material sense gratification. Therefore, when one comes to his senses on the spiritual platform, he becomes so eager to meet Govinda that without Govinda, the entire world becomes a vacant place. Asai nachai mori korai krandan eta shuni guru hasi bolila bachan. Chanting the holy name in ecstasy causes one to dance, laugh, and cry. When my spiritual master heard all this, he smiled and then began to speak. When a disciple very perfectly makes progress in spiritual life, this gladdens the spiritual master, who then also smiles in ecstasy, thinking, how successful my disciple has become. He feels so glad that he smiles as he enjoys the progress of the disciple, just as a smiling parent enjoys the activities of a child who is trying to stand up or crawl perfectly. Krishna Nama Mahamantre to Shobhav Jai Jape Tara Krishna Upajaya Bhav. It is the nature of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra that anyone who chants it immediately develops his loving ecstasy for Krishna. Purport: in Bhagavad Gita it is said, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattak sarvam pravartate matva bhajante mam udhava visamanvita. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who know this perfectly engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. In this verse, it is explained that anyone who chants the Hare Krishna mantra, develops bhava, ecstasy, which is the point at which revelation begins. It is a preliminary stage in developing one's original love for God. A neophyte disciple begins by hearing and chanting, associating with devotees, and practicing the regular principles. Thus he vanquishes all of his unwanted bad habits. In this way he develops attachment for Krishna and cannot forget Krishna even for a moment. Bhava is almost the successful stage of spiritual life. A sincere student orally receives the holy name from the spiritual master, and after being initiated, he follows the regulative principles given by the spiritual master. When the holy name is properly served in this way, automatically the spiritual nature of the holy name spreads. In other words, the devotee becomes qualified in offenselessly chanting the holy name. When one is completely fit to chant the holy name in this way, he is eligible to make disciples all over the world, and he actually becomes Jagaguru. Then the entire world under his influence begins to chant the holy names of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Thus all the disciples of such a spiritual master increase in attachment for Krishna, and therefore he sometimes cries, sometimes laughs, sometimes dances, and sometimes chants. These symptoms are very prominently manifest in the body of a pure devotee. Sometimes when our students of the Krishna consciousness movement chant and dance, even in India, people are astonished to see how these foreigners have learned to chant and dance in this ecstatic fashion. As explained by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, actually this is not due to practice, for without extra endeavor, these symptoms become manifest in anyone who sincerely chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Many fools, not knowing the transcendental nature of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, sometimes impede our loudly chanting this mantra. Yet one who is actually advanced in the fulfillment of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra induces others to chant also. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains Krishna Shakti Vinana Hetar Pravaratam. Unless one receives special power of attorney from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he cannot preach the glories of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. As devotees propagate the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the general population of the entire world gets the opportunity to understand the glories of the holy name. While chanting and dancing or hearing the holy name of the Lord, one automatically remembers the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and because there is no difference between the holy name and Krishna, the chanter is immediately linked with Krishna. Thus connected, a devotee develops his original attitude of service to the Lord. In this attitude of constantly serving Krishna, which is called Bhava, one always thinks of Krishna in many different ways. One who has attained the Bhava stage is no longer under the clutches of the illusory energy. When other spiritual ingredients such as trembling, perspiration, tears, etc. are added to this Bhava stage, the devotee gradually attains love of Krishna. The holy name of Krishna is called the Mahamantra. Other mantras mentioned in the Narada Pancharatra are known simply as mantras. The chanting of the holy name of the Lord is called the Mahamantra. Krishna Vichayaka Prema Parama Purushartha Jaraghe Prinatulya Chari Purushartha.